Hi, I'm Jeff Ellis with PPI. I'm the Director of Product Engineering, and today I'm going to talk with you about pulley diameter and face width. So there's a couple different dimensions that we use to define our pulleys at PPI, and they often can be considered very basic to some of us internally, but there are some nuances and some assumptions that we make when we're defining those dimensions and asking for information and actually turning that into a quote. So the first one we'll talk about today is face width. So the face width is the actual width of the pulley, and this is defined by the belt. The belt width itself is defined on the width by SEMA. So SEMA is the Conveyor Equipment Manufacturers Association. We use them in our industry to define a lot of the dimensions and the standards for build of conveyors and conveyor components. For typical belts, the face width will be belt width plus 2. When you get into wider belts, it can jump to belt width plus 3. When you have really narrow belts, which could be less than 24 inches, that could be for something, say, like grain applications or other non-standard applications where the face width could vary. It won't abide by that standard. There's also applications where the face could be very large. This would be in engineering, typically mining, larger mines, larger conveyors, long conveyors where you have belts that could wander a lot. And in those circumstances, you could have belt width plus 6 or even up to belt width plus 12. This can cause a lot of issues in how we quote and the information that we ask for and provide. Sometimes what will happen is the belt width could be misconstrued as the actual face width. Then you end up, if you ask for, say, a 24-inch pulley face, but you have a 24-inch belt, there's no room for that belt to wander on the pulley face. Our next topic will be diameter. So pulley diameter is measuring the outer diameter of the pulley. So here on this drum pulley, it's typically going to be measured at the end. On a wing pulley such as this, it might be measured at the center. Now the actual measurement, the nominal diameter, is standardized. So this is set by SEMA that we talked about earlier, just like face width. And it will usually start at 10 inches and go all the way up to 72 inches for standard diameters. There could be other diameters outside of that for more custom or non-standard equipment. But this is what generally governs aggregate and other applications throughout the US. Now, where you measure the pulley, that can be at the center or the end. But if you have a flat pulley, it'll be the same at the center or at the end. If you have a crown pulley, it will be different. How you crown a pulley will vary. If you have a drum, typically that nominal diameter I mentioned is at the end. In the center, it will be higher. If you have a drum that's maybe made from different materials, sometimes we will use a rolled rim, that's very common, but we might use a tube or a pipe. That will vary, so you have to be careful of how it was made, can change where that nominal diameter is actually located. Now, there's also other variations on these pulleys on what's on them. So lagging is typically considered in addition to that nominal diameter. Say if you have a 16-inch nominal pulley, half-inch lagging, that's actually going to have closer to a 17-inch outer diameter. If you have a spiral bar on a drum, that also at PPI is considered a little bit differently. So we would say your diameter over the spiral is your nominal, and the drum underneath is actually less. So it does vary even within PPI, how we define that, and of course between different brands. So that's something you have to keep in mind. There is variation in the industry. Some of the common issues we run into with diameter and face width is related to how we ask for that information. So when we ask for pulley diameter and face width, we usually term it in terms of the diameter by the face. And most of the times you will have a pulley that is a smaller diameter than the face of the pulley, but there could be applications where you have a large diameter compared to the face width. A good one would be grain applications or grain elevators, or any non-standard conveyor that's not part of a typical industry. So what happens is if we are given that information in face width by diameter, we might be providing a pulley that will not fit into your conveyor, which is less than ideal. Another common problem that we run into is diameters that are not your typical or standard per SEMA. So say this drum pulley is actually 23 inches when you measure it in the field. That's compared to a standard 24 inch. Maybe there's a reason that's needed in the application. It could be that this drive arrangement is designed to get to a certain belt speed and the 23-inch diameter is needed. Or it could be that there's some type of equipment, particularly on the tail, a wing pulley where you have containment of dust that is needed to have a specific diameter so things properly fit together. So these are all things to keep in mind when providing information about pulley diameter and face width to our sales teams.